Today, we're jumping right into a huge geopolitical chess match happening in the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, this is one of the most important waterways for the entire global economy. What's going on is that a new toll has triggered a full-on naval blockade. And this whole thing kicks off with a pretty chilling warning.
Yeah, we're going to start with this really dramatic statement, supposedly from Donald Trump, which translates to, if I sink, I will take India down with me. You know, a threat that direct just immediately cranks up the tension, right? It tells you that the fallout from this crisis could have absolutely massive ripple effects.
So, what on earth could provoke a statement like that? Well, it all goes back to one single major announcement from the United States. And here it is. The U.S. announced a full naval blockade. This isn't just a small move. This is a dramatic step that's designed to completely cut off all ship traffic going through this critical choke point. Okay, so let's be super clear on what a blockade even means here. We're talking about a military action to completely seal off the strait. No ships, not for business, not for anything, are allowed to pass. The goal is simple. Just shut the whole waterway down. So that brings up the big question, right? Why? What could possibly push the United States to take such a huge step? Well, the whole conflict really boils down to a fight over a new toll. The thing that kicked this whole thing off was Iran's decision to start charging a toll. Basically, any ship that wants to get through the strait now has to pay Iran a fee. And that just completely changes the rules of the road that have been in place for this international waterway for a very long time. And that gets us to the core of the problem. On one side, you have Iran saying, you gotta pay to pass. And on the other side, you have the United States challenging their right to even do that in the first place. Pretty much asking, says who? This is the heart of the whole dispute. You know, a fight like this in one region almost never stays in that region. The blockade is already sending some major shockwaves around the world, especially for the big powers over in Asia. See, the U.S. strategy here isn't really about a direct fight with Iran. It's more of an indirect play. By blocking the strait, the U.S. is putting the squeeze on every other country that needs it for trade and energy. It basically forces them to get involved. And to really get why this blockade is such a powerful move, you have to understand just how dependent some countries are. For one major global power, this one number is basically their economic lifeline. 90%. That's how much of China's oil from Iran has to pass through this exact strait. So a full blockade doesn't just mess with their economy, it could actually paralyze it. Our source says it's put Beijing in a state of full tension. So let's just do a quick recap of the fallout. China's now facing a massive energy crisis. India has been put on notice directly, and pretty much every other trading nation is now feeling the pressure to step in and try to get these shipping lanes back open. So how is this blockade actually supposed to work? The tactic itself is actually a really clever countermove. It's kind of like a strategic play in a big game of geopolitical chess. Okay, here's the play-by-play. First, Iran sets up its toll. Then, the U.S. parks its navy in front of Iran's toll point. This creates a whole new blockade, stopping ships before they can even get to the toll booth. In the endgame, to squeeze other countries so hard that they're the ones who go and demand that Iran backs down. You know, the strategy is so different that it's apparently already become a meme, which just perfectly sums it all up. Break an enemy's blockade by blocking their blockade. It's actually a pretty simple way to describe a very complicated move. So when you boil it all down, this is way more than just a fight over some ships and tolls. It's a really high-stakes battle of wills. A chess match where every single move could have global consequences. And it's all playing out in one of the most important waterways for the entire world economy. And all of this leaves us with a really tough question to think about. When one country's action feels like an economic wall, is the only real answer to build an even bigger one? In a world with so many complex problems, that's a question that's definitely worth pondering.